Recently in London, there was a pro-Palestinian protest, which was, I suppose we could say, curated by the Met Police. A clip from this went viral, as a Jewish man wished to speak to the protesters, and he was intercepted by the police, and the following exchanges occurred.
You are quite openly Jewish. This is a pro-Palestinian march. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I'm worried about the reaction to you. You've been escorted out of this area so you can go about your business, go where you like freely, or if you choose to remain here, because you are causing a breach of these rules and these other people, you will be arrested.
If I remain here, you will arrest me.
Because your presence here is antagonising a large group of people, and we can't deal with all of them if they attack you or if they because your presence is antagonising.
Before you get arrested.
Watching your movement. That's right.
This man's saying that he's going to start following me and want to work on my movement.
That's right. We're all going to watch your movement and record you. Wait. No, the police ain't going to help you in this scenario.
What we can draw from the police officer's demeanour and response is the following. It is taken as a given that the protesters will likely be violent. They cannot be expected to control themselves in the presence of a Jewish man. The police do not expect to control them, nor do they seem to place blame on them, and the Jewish man would be arrested for antagonising them. Naturally, this is outrageous. Putting the preposterous nature of all of this aside for a second, there is no moral controversy here. The pro-Palestinian protesters are dangerous to a Jewish man because they are racist towards him. This would, if the letter of the law were to be applied as written, be an actionable criminal offence, but the protesters are treated as if they are some kind of unapproachable, untamable beast who will instinctively respond with violence when in the presence of a Jew. The Jewish man had done nothing wrong, and represented no threat to the protesters, and yet he was the one who was threatened with arrest for causing, or potentially causing, the protesters to attack him. Matthew Pritchett, a long-standing political cartoonist for The Telegraph, lampooned this state of affairs in this cartoon, which brings about a strange confluence of events, symbology and time, as it is today St. George's Day. St. George became the patron saint of England in the 14th century under Edward III, one of England's greatest warrior kings, who admired the chivalrous virtues ascribed to the saint. The story of George comes from a collection of medieval hagiographies called the Golden Legend, in which George saves a Libyan city called Cyllene from the depredations of a dragon by defeating it in single combat. To placate the dragon, 2 children were chosen by lot by the villagers and were fed to it daily, and one day it is the king's daughter who is chosen. The king offers gold and jewels to the townspeople if they will consent to put another in her place, but they refuse. The princess is sent out to be eaten by the dragon, but George gallantly saves her by wounding and capturing the beast, and thereafter it follows the princess like the tamest dog. However, it still terrifies the town people, so George beheads it, and the city and its king convert to Christianity. The moral that we are meant to take from the story of St. George is that knights are meant to subdue and, if necessary, slay dragons, not appease them. Appeasing them leads to the deaths of innocents, and chivalry demands that we protect the vulnerable by putting an end to such evil. Returning to Matt's cartoon, we can see why this situation is not only absurd, but also an inversion of the values which were previously held by the English. The caption, "You're openly a knight, and there's a very large dragon over there," summarises the moral problem with the situation. The Met's job is to simply ensure that nobody gets hurt, and it doesn't matter how that is done. But value systems which are contradictory are held to be equal. From our perspective, it is the knight who represents the moral exemplar in this scenario, and it is also the knight who is being treated as the problem. The dragon is left to continue doing its evil. And what's more, the Met seem to have a bias in favour of the dragon. We should actually not tolerate the presence of dragons, but the multiculturalism which Blair decided to rub in our faces now forces the police officer to become the defender of the dragon. The officer therefore must accost the hero rather than the villain, because his job is not to defeat evil, it is to treat evil as the equal of good. There is a strange mythological irony in this story as well, as in 2023, Sir Mark Rowley became the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. Sir Mark is also a Knight of the Realm, having been raised to the rank of Knight Bachelor in 2018, and it was under his watch that these events occurred. You'll forgive me for pointing out what seems like an archaic tension, but it seems to me that Sir Mark should be in the business of subduing dragons, not appeasing them, by virtue of him being a knight. However, Sir Mark is also the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, which is a part of the managerial multicultural regime which demands that knights and dragons live side by side, and this regime will not only protect the dragons, but will import more dragons from overseas. Moreover, it will treat the dragons as if they were the innocent party in each encounter, unable to control their voracious appetite for devouring villagers, and so it's incumbent on the knight, who can be reasoned with, to steer clear and allow the dragon to get his lunch in peace. Today there is to be an event to mark St. George's Day in England's capital city, London. The Met have already posted a series of tweets in a disapproving tone, which seems to be a warning and condemnation of the far-right English men and women who will be there. Naturally, additional policing resources and additional search powers will be brought in to ensure that this gathering of knights does not harm any dragons, even though no such resources were brought to bear when a gathering of dragons threatened the safety of a villager. In fact, when the dragons do have, say, an Al-Quds Day march through England's capital, the Met Police are shockingly neutral and non-condemnatory about it, even when they have to arrest people in it for racial incitement. So this is the situation in which England finds itself on this St. George's Day in 2024. The liberal order would have our knights live alongside the dragons, and will proactively oppress people for objecting to this state of affairs. The Metropolitan Police Officer is now the instrument of the managerial regime, which holds that there is no difference in moral virtue between the knight and the dragon, which one might think would conflict with Sir Mark's status of being a knight. But the fact that the Met is commanded by a Knight of the Realm means nothing, as there is no moral content to such a position in the modern day. The moral mythology that underpinned England has been slowly but surely subverted, and replaced by the amorality of the international liberal order. It will wear the titles and honorifics of England as a skin suit, as it brings in and protects the dragons that it insists you live alongside, and will condemn you for being openly a knight if you are in their presence. Happy St. George's Day.